Hello, everybody. Welcome to Housing Bubble 2.0 News of the Week, or as I like to call it, another episode of As the Housing Market Turns. Doing something a little different today. We're starting off with what I call my top 10 reasons why there will be a housing crash in the future. What we're going to do is we're going to explore the top reasons that I believe are pushing us down that path. Some of it will be historical. Some will maybe resonate with people who were looking at this back in the last housing crisis. Some stuff is new and just unique to what's going on right here. I'm Randy Patrick, your host, putting the realism back in real estate. The reason why I want to do this is obviously right now, listen, I see what's going on out there. There's tons of, we talk about narratives, whether it's pro or con housing bubble or housing market surging. We've got lots of different guys doing videos, etc. And we're talking about stuff, but I'm trying to, what I think my role is, or what I'd like to do is give reasons why and help substantiate my claim that I think we're going to have some sort of housing crash in the future. Now, look, I'll be very upfront with people. I read some of your comments. I don't really read them too much anymore, to be honest with you. But a lot of people are saying, "Hey, Randy, you've been talking about this for 3 years now, 4 years, whatever it is." Well, you're right. I have been talking about it, and I'm a big enough boy to admit when I'm wrong or maybe when I'm not on the mark here. See, what we have going for us is we have, a time machine. We can go back and look at what happened in the previous housing crisis. So we should be able to look at that and go, let's see if we see similarities, or what did we miss, or what didn't we key upon that caused problems. So going forward, we can be aware of that. So things are going to be different. I can tell that right now. We're still going to have some major problems in various locations. These are some of the reasons why I believe we're headed down that path. And as we go forward in this video series, we're going to do 2 per video. I'm going to count down from 10 all the way to number 1. And obviously, I think each video will have more impactful reasons why I believe, we're going to have a housing crash or some sort of correction sometime in the near future. All right. So today we're talking about number 10 and number 9. So my number 10 reason is the majority of banks, lenders, and servicers plan to increase loss mitigation efforts. All right, for those of you that don't really know what loss mitigation is, basically that's the distress part of the lender's operation. So in other words, when you're talking short sales, forbearances, loan modifications, whatever, that falls under the sort of, we'll call it brand or broad category of loss mitigation. And if you're talking to your lender, bank, servicing company, you're talking usually to their loss mitigation department, who's engaging you, making you fill out forms, looking at your income, house values, whatever. That's basically what they do. So for me, I thought this was kind of interesting. And I'm going to talk about a report that I saw produced by auction.com. Auction.com is related to Adam Data Solutions. And this actually was from almost like mid to late second quarter last year. So we're talking a year ago, all right? A year ago. Can you believe that? Well, they were already talking about it then. And to me, my biggest takeaway was 72% of the banks, servicers, lenders they surveyed plan to increase loss mitigation efforts in the next 6 months. So when you see this, you kind of go, well, why would they plan on increasing their loss mitigation efforts? When I mean efforts, it's what they're going to do to service their client base. Possibly increase staffing, possibly create new programs, new systems, implement whatever they have to do to handle what they obviously believe is going to be an increase in volume. You see, so when we take a look at that kind of pie round chart, sort of a quasi, won't call it a pie chart, call it a donut chart there, you've got the expectations, and this is, again, this was for the last half of 2019. So I think this is kind of interesting. So what do you expect for your loss mitigation actions in the second half of 2019? Well, you had 56% felt that they're going to increase their efforts slightly, and 16% said they would increase substantially, all right? 3% said decrease slightly, and 25% decrease substantially. So when you look at the majority, which is 71%, believe that they needed to beef up the loss mitigation. And reason being, obviously they're seeing stuff, right? They expect an increase in distressed inflow, whether that's properties or client calls or working out plans, forbearance plans, loan modification, whatever. They see an increase there. So I think that's part of to me, a telltale sign when the lenders see it, because they see it before we see it. We hear about it after the fact, usually as peg counts, as either forbearances now or foreclosure starts or whatever. So these groups are seeing it in real time in their operations going, oh, my clients aren't paying their mortgage on time. I think we're going to have problems, and they can do some analysis and they can figure this stuff out. So to me, this is kind of an important concept here. All right, I'm going to go through just some of the slides here. And again, this is mid 2019. We're nowhere near COVID at this point in time, guys. So COVID is not influencing this. This is prior to COVID. They look at weakness in the West. So what they're basically saying is 40% of the respondents picked the West region as the most likely to see an increase in distressed inventory. So the West 40%, Midwest 23%, Northeast 20%, the South 17%. And when you take a look at the stuff, they talked a little bit about we saw some increases, of course, in Houston and Palm Beach County, due to some of the flooding and the hurricanes. But we also they were seeing increases in San Diego County, Salt Lake County, Denver County, Colorado, Snohomish County, Seattle, Washington, and it looks like it's called Multnomah County, Portland, up 48%. So, again, starting to see foreclosure starts, probably also seeing, whatever loss mitigation activity increase and, delays or delinquencies rising in certain regions. So they're seeing this, again, I just keep saying, go back a year ago, and this is what lenders and servicers are talking about. I mean, that's who you deal with, all right? What they also, and I'm adding this in here because I think it's important, because it's going to lead us down a path, all right? So basically, what is their top priority when disposing of distressed assets? So basically, if loss mitigation and distress is increasing, then clearly there's going to be more foreclosures coming, and they're going to take them back into their inventory as real estate owned REOs if they're not sold at the auction. So basically, they're talking about, well, how do we get rid of these homes and get rid of our losses or make income? Well, 40% basically said, we want to dispose of these assets. Expedited time of sale as our top priority. Okay, return on investment was 29%, loss mitigation 17%, avoiding headline risk 14%. Okay, so the whole point though is that when you look at this, like, they want to move the property. So to me, that's a signal that they're not going to sit on these deals or these foreclosures that are coming. They're going to move them through the foreclosures process fairly rapidly. So again, that's a hint to what's going to happen in the near future. And what they talk about here is the foreclosure auction sales shorten time to sell by 228 days. So the point here being, if they take the home back at the auction, so if a third-party buyer bidder doesn't buy the home at the foreclosure auction, it takes them on average 228 day additional time to sell that home to somebody, whether it's an investor, whether it's to a hedge fund, whether it's to a primary home buyer, whether it's to somebody with first-time home buyer grants or special categories. It takes them on average 228 days. So again, and what happens when they do that? Well, what the issue is for lenders, if it takes them that long, okay, they're holding it. So their holding costs go up. So obviously you can see by this is that disposition returns comparison that they're making more money on homes that are sold at the auction as opposed to REOs. REOs sit longer. They get beaten up. They can be vandalized. There's other issues that may happen with them. They fall further into distress, and they make less on them. So obviously they want to sell these at auction. I think it's that's what they're aiming for. Also, property preservation pinpointed as the biggest servicing and disposition challenge. Well, exactly. So we know that when a home is in the foreclosure process, they usually send real estate agents out to do what they call drive-by BPOs, broker price opinions, give a valuation. They also send out servicing crews to drive by to see if the property is vacant or occupied. If it's vacant, then guess what happens? They change the locks, they secure the property, they winterize it depending on where it is in the country. They have to cut the grass, they put the chicken wire fence over the pools. Like, they have to do things to, I guess you say, preserve the value of the asset, also to minimize damage and vandalism, and also for local residential neighborhood safety. All right. So the whole point is sell it at auction. It's faster. We're spending less money on holding costs and dealing with stuff here. And you know what? We're getting our money back faster. That's important here. So just so you see what's going on. So for me, I look at this going, these guys are, they've learned from the last housing crisis, and now they're putting systems and technology and things in place to move this process along rather quickly. All right. And basically it says here, they look at it going, the faster they foreclose, and the faster a home can come back on the marketplace purchase. So the bar graph on the right says foreclosure auctions, percent owner occupied 1 year later. So 74% of foreclosure auctions, from what they're telling us, are owner occupied 1 year later, as opposed to only 48% that reverted to the lender. So the point is, these homes get into the marketplace where people can purchase them. Now, I'm not saying price point here. It's whether they've been fixed up or however they're sold. But the point is, someone's buying the auction. They're making their money. They're making a home available to somebody else out in the field, and that's almost just 26% better than the homes that go back to the lender. So clearly, auctions are the way to go. But my point to all this is that these guys have thought about this. They've been talking about this. This is like an annual or semi-annual conference they go to. So this information came out of that conference. It's the REO, holding disposition conference, whatever you want to call it. But the point I'm making here is that this stuff was being thought of over a year ago. Trends were already being shown in their business models, in their numbers, with their client base, that we were already having problems, and certain parts of the market were increasing in foreclosure filings and were starting to crack. All right. So again, leading indicator of future housing issues, which to me is my number 10 reason. Okay, next reason, number 9, all right? The Mortgage Debt Relief Act is back, all right? And, guess who's back, right? The act is back. So this is actually kind of important. And I want to go into this, and again, I'm trying to make this video a quicker one, and I know I'm very long-winded here. So to me, this is number 9. This is another telltale sign. And basically, what I'm talking about here is, again, the word signs. You know how I like to show my image with, the people with the, one of that movie with Mel Gibson, signs, and they had this tinfoil on their heads, aliens don't read your thoughts or whatever. So anyway, signs. But the point is, another sign that people, groups, organizations in the know are seeing stuff before we see it or we see the effect of it. That to me is one. That's why it's ranked up there. So mortgage forgiveness tax break extended through 2020. Let me do a little bit of history here, okay? Mortgage Debt Relief Act was put into play back in 2007 for the last housing crisis. The whole idea with the Mortgage Debt Relief Act was the fact if you had a foreclosure or a short sale, and for whatever reason you got a 1099-C for that mortgage debt income that was assigned to you because, for example, you owed $300,000, but your home only sold for $200,000, so the lender lost $100,000. They basically said, well, we're losing that. We've just forgiven you that $100,000. We need to have some taxable event here. So people were getting what's called a 1099-C for that difference, that delta in what the home sold for and what was owed. So it was negative. It was very bad. So the government created what's called the Mortgage Debt Relief Act, which basically said on your primary home residence, if you get a 1099-C from your lender, we're going to treat that in your tax as zero, as nothing. So we're exempting you from that. It's protecting homeowners, okay? So this was created in 2007, and it went on for a number of years. It had, like 3 or 4 years at a time being enacted and renewed. Then it was just being sort of extended on a year-to-year basis. Then after 2017, it didn't get extended again. So people were now going, oh, Lord, I'm exposed to short sales or foreclosures, etc. So that to me was a bit of an issue for people. And again, I look at it going at that time, 2018, 19, what do you see? Property appreciating, less and less foreclosures actually happening. So I'm sure that whoever was looking at the act said we probably don't need this anymore. Let's not renew. It's not that big a deal. Well, okay, so it's changed, and I know it's a long dissertation here, but hang in with me, okay? So it's no longer called the Mortgage Debt Relief Act. It's called this now falls under what's called the Further Consolidated Appropriation Act of 2020, all right? And this is kind of interesting. So what they're doing is they're including the mortgage debt component in this act here, all right? So it's a little more encompassing, but it's no longer referred to as the Mortgage Debt Relief Act. It's called and get this here, it's called the Qualified Principal Residence Indebtedness Exclusion, so QPRI. So what that basically is saying is that, if you have a situation where you have a distress sale, which is a short sale or a foreclosure event, and you've received a taxable, piece of paper, a 1099-C, a taxable event document from the lender saying, hey, we essentially forgave you this delta, this difference of what it was sold for and then what you owed. We're going to, we're putting the onus on you to deal with the tax consequences. Now this covers you because they're saying that they're going to forgive that. All right. So basically, if a mortgage lender forgives all or part of a borrower's debt as part of a loan modification or after foreclosure, short sale, or deed in lieu of foreclosure, the forgiven amount is generally included in the borrower's gross income, could result in a tax liability. That's because the IRS code generally treats discharged debt as taxable income. Now, but the QPRI, so this qualified principal residence indebtedness exclusion, allows for some borrowers to exclude up to $1 million or up to $2 million for married couples of forgiven debt on their taxable income. If you meet the conditions to qualify for this tax break, like the forgiven debt was used to buy, build, or substantially improve this principal residence, you won't have to pay income tax on the forgiven amount. So this is kind of cool. And this really helps people, with their properties. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually missed this. So last year, I guess when it was reenacted, I didn't key on it because in my mind I was thinking, well, we didn't get it for 18 and 19, so they're not doing it anymore. And we've had some tax codes and some tax acts change names and functions, whatever. So for me, it was like I didn't even realize this till someone brought it to my attention. I was like, holy cow, this is actually back now. And this is very important because again, what's the importance of this? Well, it's because the federal government clearly went and said, we see this becoming a problem, and therefore we need to put this in place right now. So instead of actually, waiting for the, everything to hit the fan and become quite messy, what we've got here is a whole different ballgame now. So they're going, so for how I interpret this is that we see potential problems happening. We better start getting this in place now because we can see that this will be useful and helpful to alleviate some of the burden and the debt on homeowners in the near future. So if we had increase in values in 2018 and 19, and it wasn't enacted in 2018 or 19, why would it be enacted for 2020? So to me, another sign that somebody, some group, whoever, kind of had an inkling as to what was going to happen in the near future, and they're going to work around this, okay? Or they're laying the groundwork. So to me, this is highly positive for homeowners. So this is a good thing. So I just want everybody to know that this saved a lot of homeowners' butts back in the last housing crisis because they were getting tagged with, they could be tagged with, 50, 100, 200K worth of debt that they pay tax on when you already aren't paying your mortgage and you have financial issues. So it's just, just piling on, just kicking someone further down the street here. So this is actually a very good thing. I missed it. So I'm glad that someone pointed it out to me. I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. And I got back into it. I'm like, hey, this is great for homeowners. But again, a sign that basically says, look what's going to happen in the future. So ultimately, in the end, it basically says here that what it's doing, it's applying to debt just discharged before January 2021. So if you do a short sale or have a foreclosure where you're getting that taxable event, that happens before the end of the year, you're covered with this. Not only that, they're going to go back and they're going to retroactively include debts in 2018, 2019 for homeowners that may have had these situations, short sales, foreclosures, deed in lieu, whatever, back for the past couple of years. So they retroactively fixed that back in the day. Now, you're going to say, oh, but what about it expires at the end of January here? Well, here's what's probably going to happen. This actually was enacted at the end of 2019. This came into play at December 20, 2019, so almost a year ago. So again, going back to the signs, they were seeing this over a year ago, all right, and they've enacted this. So so what I'm thinking here is that that's pre-COVID. So when COVID is hitting, we'll see a lot more of these issues manifesting as the 2021 comes on. I can probably confidently say that if they brought this back, they're probably going to extend it for 2021 and probably 2022 because it's going to be required. If it's required for 2019, they're retroactively making it, it's going to be extended for the next couple of years. So I wouldn't have a worry upon this. Again, good things for homeowners. I'm just basically adding, this is another article on this here, so you can look this up basically. So it's a good positive thing. Just some of the I guess you could say the history of the act was, created in 2007. Fortunately, it was a temporary measure. The law expired end of 2017. but Congress gave it a new life when the Further Consolidated Appropriations Act was signed into law end of December 2019. And the act has extended this mortgage forgiveness relief through December 31st, 2020. So again, that's the current act. As I said, chances are it will be extended for the next year, if not more. Just so we all want to understand here, what is mortgage income? Basically, the example here is that maybe you're going through a tough time, your friend gives you $100. You presume to pay him back on your next payday, tells you not to worry about it. Bottom line is, you now have $100 you didn't have before, didn't have to earn it by working. The IRS takes the position this type of transaction represents income to you. That's why the lender looks at it the same way and issues you what's called a 1099-C. So there you go. Again, how does the Mortgage Debt Relief Act or the QPRI work? It's on your principal place of residence. The house must have been used as the taxpayer's main home. It was a principal place of residence for the debtor. Second home, vacation homes, investment properties, or rental units won't qualify under the act. That's true. This is really more of a homeowner thing. You have to pass the IRS code for primary residence, which is living in the property the past 2 of the 5 years. However, there are other ways to work around stuff that's not covered by this, like second, vacation, investment property, whatever. There's other ways that I can talk to you about how to do this. Limitation on discharge debt, cancel mortgage up to $2 million for married or $1 million for separate. And again, it's acquisition versus home equity debt. So basically, what they're looking for is the purchase mortgages. So the debt you use to purchase the mortgage, okay, or basically if you took out a home equity line, but you used it to I guess improve your principal residence. So what they don't want to see, or what they're not going to cover, is your home equity line that you took out and you equity stripped your house, and guess what? Now you're buying vehicles, boats, whatever. So they're not going to go for that. But for the majority of people, this is going to work just fine. And again, this is a very good thing, especially in what's going to happen in the future. So in summary, what's the summary of all these? Number 9 and number 10. Well, let me go through really quickly here. Number 10, why did number 10 make the top 10 list? Well, banks and servicers and lenders see the trends. They look at their clients, right? So they see them first. We see or hear about them after the fact. So it's the forbearance stats after the fact. It's the pay counts on foreclosure starts or foreclosure sales after the fact, right? So we hear about them after. They're seeing them as they unfold and in real time. So this obviously was a growing trend because it was discussed mid-2019. So over 70% of the servicers, banks, lenders that were at the conference, they surveyed, said we're going to beef up our activities, staffing, programs, activity to be more vigilant because we know what's coming down the river here. Okay, they have a keen expectation of increased levels of distressed property hitting them. They know that there's various locations that are or were and will show stress. They know where the locations are because they can look at that. But I come back to, what do they know that we don't? So they were already seeing this back before anything, before what's happening right now. So they're getting prepared. They've learned from the previous crisis. And again, I want to stress here, this is before COVID was impacting the real estate market. So if they're talking about this second quarter, midsummer 2019, COVID is not even here until February, March, okay? At least when we as the general public are becoming aware of it, and all the other things are rolling out to how to help, people in forbearance and et cetera, foreclosures, the whole bit. So, but look where we are today. Now we need all this support. The lenders need to have all these things in place because now they're dealing with increased call volumes and increased issues, and it's going to continue and continue. And as people roll out of forbearance, they're going to roll into loan mods or foreclosure, other distress, et cetera. So their loss mitigation efforts are going to be big time. So again, this is one of the reasons why I believe that we're going to have a housing crash. Now, number 9, why did number 9 make the top 10 list? Well, like the lenders, the government must believe there will be issues. And why? Because the Mortgage Debt Relief Act came into play. And why? Again, this wasn't a concern 2018-19. But why else would they bring this back? What do they know? What do they see? Well, they do have access to mortgage data as well, too. The GSEs, Fannie and Freddie, you got FHA, VA, Ginnie Mae, et cetera. So they can look at, overall statistics on loans and go, maybe we're seeing delinquencies increase. Maybe, stuff's going on. And I'm not even talking, guys like, thinking about, did the government know about COVID 6 months before it got here? I'm not even going down those rabbit holes. I'm just saying whatever they know, they saw it. They're putting stuff in place because, as opposed to retroactively doing it, they're now implementing it as a positive measure. Okay. Again, FHA delinquencies. I've talked about it a few times. You can look at the stats. They were starting to increase substantially back in 2019, and this act went back in play in 2019. Didn't go back and play, while COVID was going on or whether it was growing. It went before the mainstream, the rest of us picked up on the COVID situation. So to me, again, two groups that kind of know what's going on here. And again, this goes back to my FHA chart. If you take a look at the right-hand column, this is the top 10 most threatened metros based on FHA delinquency, and the right-hand column is FHA share of metro lending 2019. So if you take a look, those percentages are the number or the percentage of FHA loans issued in 2019 that are already delinquent, okay? When you've got 15% over to 20% already delinquent, they probably saw that this was increasing. They figured we got to do something about it, all right? So that's the scoop there. Now, just to where am I going with this? Well, clearly, if there's going to be some changes in the housing industry, you got to be ready for it. So I can show you how to participate and purchase cheaper property, whether it's your primary residence, second or vacation home, or real estate investment. Drop me a line. Basically, I'm opening up, the opportunity to connect. How to call me. I'll give you a consultation, tell you what I'm doing, what's going on, what to look forward to, what I got going on, how you may want to participate in it, okay? I think what I got is one of the best cost-effective ways to get access to off-market properties, to get cheaper priced homes, that no one is doing what I'm doing at this point in time, okay? That's the teaser. Give me a shout. How do you give me a shout? Really easy. What you do is you basically send me an email, say you want to talk, send me your cell phone, and tell me when you're available, and I'll reach out to you, and we'll talk about the housing market, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, and see if I can help you. All right, guys, that was number 10 and number 9. Next video will be, it looks like 8 and 7. We'll work our way up to the final. And as a side note, I am going to be creating a document that you can download that will go along with this. It's on my housing. It will be on my Housing Bubble 2 website right now. Right now, there's another older document. So once I get through this, I'll post that up there so you can download. If you want to download what's there now, go ahead and I'll email you because I'll have your email by then. I'll email you my document when I've got it completed. Okay. All right, guys. Take care. We'll look forward to talking to you later on.